Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Russ, K5TUX, Cheryl, W5MOO, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody and welcome. You have tuned in to episode number 450 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. And this episode is The Weekender. This is the 85th edition of The Weekender, so we're glad you could join us for that. And before we get into all of the amateur radio and open source and hedonistic topics for tonight, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
I'm Cheryl, W5MOO.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, and Bill, as everybody knows at this point, or should, is recording all the way from Ireland, so it's actually well after 5 p.m. his time, so hopefully he's enjoying his hedonistic pursuits while I'm actually engaged in day drinking. So, you know what? It's okay. I'm perfectly fine with it. So
it is the weekend, after all.
It is the weekend, yes. And yeah, that's right. Normally on the weekender, we don't record on the weekend, but we actually are today. So how cool is that? But before we get down into the hedonism, all the good stuff, all the things that make life worth living, let's talk about some amateur radio and some open source and things that you can do over the next couple of weeks to participate in both of those hobbies. And Bill always starts us off with upcoming amateur radio contests. So what do we got?
Okay, so these, of course, come from contestcalendar.com, the most wonderful contestcalendar.com there could be. And, this coming weekend is the CQ 160 meter contest. It runs from 2200 Zulu January 28th to 2200 Zulu January 30th. Band, of course, is 160 meters, mode CW. And what is this? This is for amateurs around the world to contact other amateurs in as many U.S., Canadian provinces and countries as possible, utilizing the top band. So good time to work out the top band here. And also this weekend, we got the Winter Field Day. And this starts on 1900 Zulu, January 29th, and runs to 1900 Zulu, January 30th. Bands there are any band, excluding work bands, any mode, but you need to see the rule book to assure that your mode that you're operating in is adequate for the contest. And what is this? This is the Winter Field Day Association, the WFDA, is a dedicated group of amateur radio operators who believe that emergency communications in a winter environment is just as important as the preparations and practice that is done each summer, but with some additional unique operational concerns. We believe, as do the Aries and Races organizations, that maintaining your operational skills should not be limited to fair weather scenarios. The addition of Winter Field Day will enhance those already important skills of those who generously volunteer their time and equipment to these organizations. This is why the Winter Field Day is open to all licensed amateur radio operators worldwide. And that's for this weekend. This weekend has no state QSO party challenges or workdog QSO parties. That's because next weekend is the opening weekend. But we'll talk about the Mexico Ariti International Contest, and that one is 1200 Zulu February 5th to 2359 Zulu February 6th. Bands there are 80 through 10. No work mode, of course, is Ariti. And this is for Mexican amateurs to exchange signal report and state, and everyone else exchanges signal report and serial number. So this is a good opportunity to get a clean sweep of all the states in Mexico. Kind of a unique opportunity. And the State QSO Party Challenge opens up this weekend, and it opens up with Vermont, Minnesota, and British Columbia. So you got 3 QSO parties running at once. And remember, if you want to participate in the Workdog QSO parties or the State QSO Party Challenge, you need to report your scores to 3830 Scores. .com. I believe that's right. 3830 scores. That sounds right. Or check the Winter Field Day website for rules and information. And that's what we got for contests in the next 2 weeks. What do you got for special events?
All right, that sounds good. And the thing about Winter Field Day is that you can use any mode that doesn't require a lookup table, which means you can do digital modes like FLDigi uses PSK31, stuff like that, but you cannot use FT8 because that requires a lookup table. So there be the difference or something like that. It's outlined in the rules. And I think we'll have a link to the rule book for Field Day. All right, so coming up, we have some amateur radio special event stations. The first one I've got listed here is the California Discovery of Gold special event station, which is coming up from January 29th at 1600 Zulu to January 31st, 0001 Zulu. Call sign is Alpha Golf 6 Alpha Uniform, which is Silver 6. Yeah, that's right. No, it's, which one's gold? AU is gold, right? So it's Silver 6 Gold. Is that right? I think that's right. Can't remember my periodic table for some reason today. It must be the day drinking. Anyway, that will be operating on or about 7.248, 14.248, 21.348, 28.348 phone as the mode. And it's to commemorate the 174th anniversary of the discovery of gold in Coloma, California, starting the 49er Gold Rush. And links to more information about that will be in the show notes. Next, we have a commemoration of the Republic of Texas Central National Road, which is operating from February 5th, 1400 Zulu to February 5th, 2200 Zulu, so short time special event. This will be operating on, looks like, CW and digital and phone, all on 20 meters. 14.050, 14.074, and 14.265. And this is commemorating the Republic of the Texas Central National Road and its impact on the history of Rockwell and all of Texas. Planned operation on CWFT8 and single sideband. QSL card is available for download from the Rockwall, not Rockwell. Why didn't somebody fix that for me? Rockwall Amateur Radio Club website. The link, of course, will be in the show notes. So next, we have a commemoration of Abraham Lincoln's birthday. This will be operating from February 7th to February 14th, 1200 Zulu to 0600 Zulu daily. Call signs will be Whiskey 9 Lima and Kilo 9 Lima. And this will be, looks like, phone on 20 and 40 meters, most likely, 14.25 and 7.25. Although there are notes here say all bands and all modes, so I guess I just threw those in as placeholders. K9L will be managed by multiple club members running from the home, February 7th through the 13th. W9L will only be used on location at the farm owned by President Lincoln's father and stepmother. Lincoln log cabin information can be found at a link that will be in the show notes, and links to more information about the special event will also be in the show notes. So check it out if you want to participate in some upcoming amateur radio special events. And then announcements. You got anything before I get to the one that I have?
No.
For announcements, the only one I had is the fact that we have changed the URL of the URL shortener. And I believe I have gone through all of the links that are on the website, but there may be some floating around on the internet that we don't know about where people have used shortened URLs. One specific example I can think of is Twitter, which will still have the old URL shortener URL, which is no longer valid. However, the links are still there. It's just the domain that's changed. So I just wanted to put it out there that if you see a link, a shortened link that starts with url.bcts.info, that will no longer work. And you will have to use the new URL shortener URL, which is LHS.FYI, which, as you can tell, is much shorter. So
very short. So sexy.
It is very short. So all the new links will be posted using that shortener. And like I said, I've updated the website to remove references to the old one and put in the new one. And you can actually get to the Linux and the Ham Shack website using LHS.FYI as well. It will forward you to the appropriate place. So, and nicely, the way I have it set up is if you do LHS.FYI/some shortened URL, it will go to that. And if it's an undefined URL, it will just put you at the homepage. So that way.
That's nice.
Yeah. So that should work out pretty well, and that's the only announcement I really had. So I guess we'll just move on and talk about some open source. Oh, wait, I do have the Ham Radio Challenge, which the only thing I had to put in here was there's an upcoming a special event called Winter Field Day, which is a contest and a special event, if you want to call it that or whatever. And we should all participate in that, because as you're listening to this, it's coming up really soon, like this weekend. If you don't have anything to do, participate in Winter Field Day, which is sort of the winter version of the Summer Field Day. It's not as big, not as popular, but there are still a lot of people participating in it. And if you listened to the last episode, you found out there's a field day logger for this particular event that I've been working on and flexing my Python muscles. So check that out as well. Links, of course, will be in the show notes. So let's go ahead and move on to this weekend in open source. And the first thing we touch on in there is a distribution that you might want to give a trial spin of. And Bill has picked out, an Arch distribution. So, okay, what Arch distro do we have, and why do we have it?
Okay, the Arch distro of the week is, no, this one is Arch Labs Linux. Arch Labs Linux is an Arch Linux-based distribution influenced and inspired by the look and feel of Bunsen Labs with the intermediate and advanced user in mind. Whatever that means, I have no idea. With the rolling release cycle of Arch Linux, the new packages will be available immediately, making upgrades a thing of the past. The Arch Labs ISO does not include a live environment. You are straight into the console, hardcore. The installer is launched from there. The release notes, which this release just happened the other day, a few days back, or last week probably. The version is 2022.01.18, and it's available for download, and it includes the addition of DK and Sway window managers, tweak and tidy up of the XFCE4 session, a new default wallpaper based on this original by Jack Zong, updated the Arch Labs repository, updated Rofi theme, and Arch Labs AUR helper BAPH has had an update. Version 1.5 brings a new check, update flag, and some other minor improvements. So check out this Arch Labs Linux distribution.
All right, another one to give a try if you're into the whole Arch thing and living on the bleeding edge of your life, which, since we're getting into hedonism, I guess you need to be there once we get down there. Take a risk. Yeah, take a risk, exactly. And if you want to take a risk on meeting with a bunch of your peers in the world of COVID, you could do that too. We do have some upcoming open source events that are around the world. If you want to participate in those, we're sort of getting almost out of the virtual phase into live events again, although there's still a combination of both. But the way things are going, I have a feeling there's going to be both going forward from here. So, Cheryl, what do we got coming up?
My list of events for this week is L&D Innovations and Tech Fest in Sydney. It's February 3rd and 4th in Sydney, Australia. The cost is $16.50 to $26.95 Australian. The information is the world has changed, learning has changed, businesses are demanding, new technologies are emerging. Employees have different expectations. It's never been more important to embrace and develop different skill sets and abilities to ensure adaptability and to retain talent. We are rethinking learning, not only what is being learned, but when and how. The big L&D shift is on. L&D is a core business function with a seat at the table for high-level strategic conversations. L&D Innovation and Tech Fest will run alongside HR Innovation and Tech Fest, the fastest growing and most vibrant HR event. The next one is the Open Source World Fest. It is February 8th through 11th, 2022, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The cost is free to $35.99. Open Source World is focused on open source business users and potential users who are interested in getting more in-depth experience with open source and who also want to learn more from open source adopters and see what's happening in the open source market. Open Source World at IT Expo is a pure play IP conference where decision makers will learn that they have a cost-effective and powerful choice. Open Source World gives these audiences the opportunity to experience the global reach of open source and the world-class solutions which can solve traditional problems with new technologies and techniques. And information on both of these will be in the show notes.
Yes, very good. And we come down out of our open source events into the Linux and the Ham Shack Open Source Challenge, which I made the same challenge as the Amateur Radio Challenge, which is to participate in Winter Field Day coming up real soon to the airwaves near you. And if you want to use the Winter Field Day logger that Mike, K6GTE, and myself have been working on, which is written in Python and is slowly becoming truly awesome, you could use that. It's an open source platform, and it's available freely from GitHub. A link, of course, will be in the show notes. So check that, and maybe I'll find you on the air and be able to log you into an application I actually wrote some code for. So cool. I'm excited. I can't help it. So now, since I'm excited, let's go ahead and roll into hedonism and get down to all the stuff that makes life worth living. And we always start with food because, you know, we're human beings and we have to eat. And if you're going to eat, you might as well eat well. So Cheryl's going to take us into what we've got for food coming up this, couple of weeks. Don't eat this like every night for the next couple of weeks, but, try it one of those nights.
Well, you could.
Well, you could,
really like it. Yeah. So, anyway, the recipe I chose for this time is slow cooker Mongolian beef. Russ and I are both big fans of Mongolian beef, and this is a very quick and tasty meal with a lot of ease. And for this, you need some soy sauce, some brown sugar, some toasted sesame oil, some ginger root, some garlic, some beef, some flour, some vegetable oil, some beef broth, some carrots, some cider vinegar, some green onions, and some sesame seeds. And the recipe, of course, will be in the show notes. And then for my mixed drink corner, I picked the Pegu Club or Pegu Club. The information on it is the Pegu Club cocktail originated in the Pegu Club in Rangoon, the capital of Myanmar or Burma, which was formerly part of the British Empire. The Pegu Club, named for its nearby Pegu River, made its way around the world with Brits and foreigners alike in the early 20th century. No one's certain who created it or when it was invented, but it must have been before 1927, as that was the year of publication of Harry McElhone's Barflies and Cocktails, which was the first book to make mention of the Pegu Club. From there, it became a mainstay in bar culture and a clear cultural reference. And for this, you need some gin, some curacao, some lime juice, and some Angostura bitters. And again, the rest of that will be in the show notes.
It's basically dump it into a glass and stir. I mean, it's it's not that big of a deal, but yeah, it's
complicated
a super
instructions.
Yeah, it is complicated. Sometimes you forget to put ice in your cocktail glass or something. So but yeah, right. It's a quick and easy drink. So
I might have to try one of those. Actually, it sounds good. Anything that's got gin and bitters in it sounds like it'd be really good to me. So
well, there you go.
And fresh lime juice. So yeah, it's got some nice citrusy kick to it. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to try and shorten my drink corner this week because Bill has a drink corner this time because he's actually in Ireland where there's like good stuff to be had, and apparently he has some. So. Rather than hear about all the boring crap we have in the United States, we want to go to Ireland. But let's do mine first, I guess. What I have is 2 Bar bottled and bond straight bourbon. Over a century ago, the 2 Bar Ranch was founded in Texas. For 5 generations, the 2 Bar brand has stood for quality, independence, and hard work. Those values are brought to 2 Bar Spirits, where locally grown grain is milled, mashed, fermented, distilled, and aged in oak barrels. We do all of this with one goal in mind: make a damn fine whiskey. We remain true to that lineage at our distillery in Seattle, Washington. Our single-minded focus on making great whiskey is what motivates our team every single day. We do it the hard way because it's the right way. At the end of the day, it's just really good whiskey made by people with relentless passion. So, is it any good? I guess that's what we need to find out. So the details on this, couldn't find any actual mash bill about the grains. I did see something that said it's 90% grain that comes out of Washington and 10% grain that comes out of Oregon. But what those grains are, we can't really say. Obviously, it's at least 51% corn because it's Kentucky straight bourbon, or straight bourbon, not Kentucky straight bourbon. It's obviously a Washington straight bourbon. So it's at least mostly corn, but there's probably some barley and rye and stuff in there, but those grains obviously came out of the Pacific Northwest. This particular bottle is bottled at 100% or 100 proof because it's bottled in bond, so it has to be, which makes it 50% ABV. It does come out of Seattle, Washington. The color on it is a nice golden honey color. It has been aged over 4 years, as it states right on the bottle, so it's got a nice bourbon flavor to it. The nose notes that I pulled off of this are butterscotch, vanilla, caramel, honey, vaguely floral notes. I couldn't identify any specific species of flower like hibiscus or something like that, but there's definitely something floral in there, and some peanut brittle. On the taste, I got dune grass, peanut, honey, caramel, barley, and toasted oak. A nice grouping of all of those different flavors. They melded well, and I really enjoyed the flavor of it. And if you let the finish linger, it is rather long, but if you sort of wait all the way to the end, you get some really nice notes in there. I got hints of toasted oak, bitter caramel, molasses, and at the very end, a bit of chocolate, which that chocolate finish is what makes you sort of want to go back to it and get all of that other peanut, caramel, toasted oak, and honey and stuff out. And then you sort of wait through the finish and get back to the chocolate. And it's sort of a really nice circle of life kind of thing going on with this 2-bar bottled in bond bourbon. So I actually really enjoyed it. It comes in at about $50 a bottle for a fifth, and I'm going to give it a solid 90. It's really good craft bourbon, and I recommend if you can find it in your store, you should get some. Okay, enough about that. Let's hear about some Irish whiskey.
Yeah, and this is just one that kind of stood out in the aisle as I was down at the Tesco, so I wasn't at a fancy whiskey purchasing place. I was literally at the supermarket, and it was so cool to see liquor in the supermarket. But anyway, this one is the West Cork blended Irish whiskey bourbon cask expression. And let's see the description of the distillers here. It has often been said about West Cork distillers that we are a distillery built and run by the people for the people. Based in Skibbereen, the company was founded in 2003 by childhood friends John O'Connell, Dennis McCarthy, and Gear McCarthy, and has since been grown to a team of over 100 people. This expression, of course, is matured in bourbon casks to deliver the authentic and unique quality that it has. So its mash bill is 25% grain and 75% grain and 25% malt. Its proof is 80, 40% ABV. Of course, Skibbereen, Cork County, Ireland. Color, I'd say light amber. The picture on the website is very generous in the golden color or the deepness. Yeah, it's fairly light in color. The distiller's nose, because I don't really have much of a nose. It says malt, lingering sweetness, citrus, apple, and nutmeg. I get the sweetness, maybe a little citrus. I guess the malt is the booze.
It's the grain. Yeah, that's what it's made of.
Yeah, it's the grain. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I get that. Okay. And the distiller's taste is a malt, light citrus, and cracked pepper. And I'll go ahead and take a taste.
Oh. You'll have to come up with your own finishing notes, apparently.
Yeah, I haven't finished the bottle yet, so we won't have that until
That's
I've
not
finished.
what that means. Come on.
Oh, that's not what that means? Oh, my God. I really thought that's what the finish was. It has a nice, how can I describe it? It's different. It has a nice finish. It kind of just mellows out. Nothing stands out afterwards. But I do notice that like the viscosity is slightly different, slightly thinner than what I'm used to drinking bourbon. So I find that is kind of interesting, with the Irish whiskey. I don't know if that's normal or what, but like it tastes thinner. Does that sound normal? Or does that sound...
It does sound normal for an Irish whiskey. They tend to be a little less viscous, and they tend to be bottled at slightly lower proof, and which also contributes to that sort of thinness.
Yeah. That's about the only thing I can say. I mean, yeah, the taste and the finish are very similar. I don't get anything else. It basically nice and just kind of slowly mellows out on the tongue and the palate. It's actually really nice to drink. Yeah, I like it. I mean, I'm halfway through the bottle, so yeah, it's pretty good. And it was 28 euros. So yeah, do the exchange rate. So like $30, 32 bucks, maybe $31. I don't know. somewhere around there for a 700 ml bottle. So slightly more expensive, right? So yeah, rating, I'm not going to give it a number. I can tell you that it was rated before by some important people as a 92, but take that for what it's worth. I rate this as pretty good. So we'll just put that as pretty good.
All right. It gets
That'll be the official rating.
Right. The official pretty good rating. Okay. Excellent. So
Pretty
we're going to go with like terrible, not so bad, pretty good, and excellent. Right. Those will be the categories for you.
That sounds good. I'm good. Like a 4-point scale almost, it's the first one in, so it's really hard. It's always hard being the first one. And this one does say it's available lots of places, so I'm not sure if this is available in the US or not, but you might want to check if it's available in the US, because they say they're available in like 70 countries, but I didn't do a full list of where that actually is.
Right.
But pretty good.
Oh, all right. Excellent. Sounds good. And it's nice to hear something on like these drink corners that we don't normally get. I mean, it's really easy to come across Scotch, Irish whiskey, and bourbon here in the United States, but there's obviously going to be stuff that we just don't get. And it'll be kind of nice over the next 3 months to hear some of those things. So hopefully if you do this more and pick up stuff at local supermarkets or whatnot, that you try and pick up things that we can't actually get here. It'd be
Yeah, I was looking for one specific one that I knew was fairly local. Well, more local than this one, obviously, because this is down south, but in the same county. But I didn't see that one at the Tesco. I saw it at the other store, and I was like, I don't feel like walking 3 more blocks to go to the other one. I really thought they would have it here, but they didn't. So yeah, the next one I'll try to do it. I think there was a single malt whiskey.
Ah, sounds good. And funny thing, you mentioned, kind of interesting or you thought it was nice to see liquor in the grocery store.
Yeah.
See, in Missouri, liquor is everywhere. Grocery stores, gas stations, candy shops, daycares, whatever.
Daycares.
If they can get a liquor license, they have a liquor license. You can literally buy this stuff anywhere. So
yeah, cool.
But anyway, okay, so that brings us down to the end of the show. We've gotten through the amateur radio, we've gotten through the open source, we've gotten through the hedonism, and we hope you can use some or all of that over the next 2 weeks to have an enjoyable 14-day period, and we'll join us again for the next weekender so we can tell you about some more stuff that you can enjoy and make your life better. But before we get out of here and close this one up, we'll mention the folks who are with us in the live recording tonight. We had John, K1BTZ, Steve, K7HVT, Fred, N2NRV, and H. Joswiak. So thanks, everybody, for being here and listening to the live stream or checking us out on Discord or whatever, and you can do that too. Links to everything is, of course, at the website. If you need to know where to find us, check out lhspodcast.info, and you'll know where you can find everything about the show. And in the meantime, we hope you have a great couple of weeks and join us for the next one and participate in some amateur radio and open source stuff over the next little bit. And check out our deep dive episode, which is coming up next. And with that, we'll go ahead and let you go and get on out of here. This has been episode number 450 of Linux in the Ham Shack. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
I'm Cheryl, W5MOO.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD 73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Our website is located at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast by visiting the LHS Patreon page at patreon.com/LHS Podcast or by using the contribute list on the homepage. We have a presence on Discord, Facebook, IRC, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also drop us an email at info@lhspodcast.info or leave us a voicemail at 1-909-LHS-SHOW. That's 1-909-547-7469. Visit the online LHS merchandise store at shop.lhspodcast.info for fun and fashionable show-themed merchandise. Until next time, remember to always heed your hedonism.